Hey YouTube, welcome back to the fourth part of my tutorial. In the last part we covered how to make the L profiles and how to fabricate them and cut them out of the steel sheet. And in this part we're going to clean them up, we're going to tin them, and we're going to join them all together and create a structure. And pretty much from there we learned all the basics on how to produce these simple elements within our models, and then later on I'll probably make another tutorial on how to make more complex things. So we're going to start. We're going to need to remove this paper that we used for the template, and nothing fancy there. You just take a bowl of water. The size of the bowl is pretty much the size of the parts that you're making. This is quite big for these, but it will do. And we just take them and we put them in the water. Let them soak nicely. There we go. We're also going to throw in these two because we don't need the paper anymore, so we're just going to keep them for later. This is just crap. So it will take about 30 seconds, a minute, and then I'll show you how easily it peels off. You can already see that it does peel off. I'm going to just talk for a minute about shaping these parts. So as I said, I really tried to keep these tutorials short, and I'm cutting a lot of things that I'm talking in between, but they make the whole thing too long. When you're bending the material, when you're shaping it, just like we produce these parts, you always want to allow the metal to do what it needs to do. So you would just create a mark, and on that's the fault line in the metal. That's where it's supposed to bend, but you don't really want to overdo it. You just want to apply pressure to the metal and allow it to figure out that it just needs to bend there, and that what will happen. That is something that you will see when you're working. You will get a feel for it, and we can already see here that when I take this part out of the water, there we go, you can just grab it and I can remove the leftover paper, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to throw it back into the water. We're going to remove the other side, and then we're going to rinse it a bit just to remove whatever is left from the glue. Be careful because it still has these slightly sharp edges here. It will always have sharp edges, but if you sand it just a little bit, then it will go away. So just be careful. I have a bit of toilet paper here, which we're just going to use to absorb the water, and you can see that I'm easily just peeling them off. Rinse it a bit, remove the glue, throw it here, and the next one. And it's really nice. I used to, at the beginning, I used to use that white plastic glue, but then parts of the paper would stick to the metal and they will not come off. So then you need to start sand it again and scrape the glue from it. And then I discovered this glue that I showed you in part 3. It does an excellent job. So almost done. Just peels off nicely. It really helps when you're making large pieces because if you have that paper stuck on your piece, obviously you can't do any soldering on it until you scrape it off. And when you need to scrape large pieces, it's not really that much fun. So here we go. We got them all. Okay, so I'm gonna put this aside. Got rid of the junk and just give it a nice dry. All sides will come in contact with the toilet paper, which absorbs all the moisture nicely. I'm gonna get them separated there, like that. Okay, so I'm just gonna let them dry for a short while, just to make sure that they are completely dry. And when I'll come back, we're gonna start to actually prepare this for joining them together. And we're gonna tin them, and we're gonna use the soldering iron. And then I'm also gonna explain how to use that thing. And that will pretty much sum up this whole first tutorial. So I'll see you back shortly. So we're back, and I have everything ready here for getting it. We're going to solder these parts together. Before we start, let's first of all see what sort of tools I'm going to be using. I already covered the tools, but just to see which ones specifically we use for the soldering. So I have a vise. I'm going to use the vise, and I have this jig. It's nothing special, I just use it because it has the straight angle here, so it's going to be a nice template for us. We can always do it like free ball it, but we have it ready, so we might as well use it. I have the soldering iron, and I have its accessories here. So we have flux, and we have here solder wire. Now I have two types here. I have a 0.5 millimeter. I don't use this one for my metal hobby. It's for electronics, but for us we need to use a 1 millimeter one, and it provides enough material to fill in our joints and make good strong joints. So this is what you want to have. And I have here these, I think you call them earbuds. You use them to clean your ears, and I use this to apply the flux onto the metal. I have two needle nose pliers, and I just use them to grab the shape and move it around. Obviously, since I'm using flux, I'm going to be using vinyl gloves, disposable gloves for protection. And I have these wooden pegs. Just use them for applying pressure at a certain point, just to hold two pieces together. You're going to see it pretty soon. And I have this little fan here. This fan is to remove all the fumes that come out of the soldering process, and you don't want to inhale those fumes. They're kind of really bad for you. Not on a short term, but on a long term they will cause damage to your health. So I have this little fan, and pretty soon you're going to start hearing. I also have a bigger fan here, and it's going to circulate the air through the room. I have an open window, so all these things are very important. Aside from that, I think that we can start building. A few safety things about the soldering iron. It produces a lot of heat, so I'm sure that you heard it 1,000 times if you heard about this device. Obviously, always when you're not using it, when you're planning to leave it unattended, turn it off. These cheap ones, they don't really come with an on-off button, and so I have this splitter here that has its own on-off button, and I have the fan and the soldering iron hooked up to this, so I have just one point that I turn it on and off. Don't leave it on if you're not going to use it for a long while. So the goal is you want to have all your parts prepared, ready, you measure them, you align them all together, you know exactly where they're going to go, so that it doesn't just stay on while you're trying to fix different things here. It's going to burn out the tip, and it's just going to shorten the life of the soldering iron. I use this sponge. I mentioned this sponge in the first tutorial. It's just like, it's a metallic, it's like this metal wire, and it's used to scrub dishes, and it's very good for cleaning the tip of the iron every time that we're using it. After every pass that we're going to use it, we're going to clean the tip. It's very important, otherwise it's going to burn out. And that's it. I think that that we can begin. I am using this, it's like a cover for a DVD, and I use it just not to ruin my work area here. When you use the flux and it heats up, and also when you take some of the tin here, it bubbles and it causes all these stains and marks here, so don't want to ruin my surface. One thing that I do like to do is I like to take a piece of wire, and I have this little hole here. Usually all these casings have a hole, and then I just position it like that, and it's always available to me. I can just take how much I need from it and just put it in any position, instead of just, for example, putting it like that and then it falls, and it's not that handy. So I'm going to turn my iron on, and we can see that our little fan is also turned on, and I'm going to just turn it around because it's in the opposite direction. And I'm just going to go and turn on the fan, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we have our fan turned on, and our iron here is starting to heat up. We're going to need to give it a few more minutes. In the meantime, we're going to prepare everything. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to decide that these 4 pieces, they're all the same length, they're all the same shape. These 4 pieces will make our frame, and these 4 pieces we will later on put as the rails themselves within the frame. So I'm going to start by just putting on these safety gloves, protection gloves. This part of the tutorial is going to be a bit longer, I think. I really try to avoid it, but yeah, I can't really skip all these parts. I don't know how to present it otherwise. Okay, so we have this. We're going to take our vise. And we're going to take our jig. It's going to also provide us with a nice working area here from wood, and it pretty much costs €1, and it's been working so far. So I'm just going to put it like this. I want to have the corners here. This is the corner that I'm going to use for making the basic frame. I'm going to use it to align it so that I don't need to use any sort of fancy measurements, and get it all straight. Let's just do the other way around. So let's just make sure that we have enough material here. That's it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start by tinning these pieces. What tinning is a process that we do before we join 2 pieces together. and we're basically going to cover the area where we want to make the joint. We're going to cover it with a bit of tin, and what it does is that first of all, you just handle one part, so you don't need to hold like two parts together at the same time, and it will heat up the metal. It will put on a thin layer of tin which will bond to the surface of the metal, and then when we do that on both parts and we just put them together, once we heat up this area, the tin will bond, and that will create a nice strong and fast joint. So we're first just gonna see which areas we're actually going to tin. We're going to make, there is a lot to explain about joints. You have overlapping joints and you have butt joints where two faces come together. In this case, we're just going to do overlapping joints. I'm going to explain this in a more dedicated video because then it's going to get too long. So just know for now that we're going to do overlapping joints, and that pretty much means that we take one piece and we place it over the other so that the metal overlaps, and where the two metals will meet, I don't know if you can really see that, but you can pretty much know what I'm talking about. There we go. So where the two metals will meet, that's where I'm going to create my joint, and I'm going to do that on the inside of the shape and also on the outside. So we have two places on our connection that the metals will overlap, and these two places I want to join them together. So I'm going to start by thinning these pieces everywhere where I'm going to have a joint in this initial build of this shape. I'm going to put some tin on it. It's really easy. Let's just get this ready. I'm going to make a dedicated video about how to take care of your soldering iron and how to use it in different ways. But since I'm making this whole part of the build, I don't want a video that is 40 minutes long, so I'm going to keep it short. Basically, how do you tin parts? You have your iron, you're going to just dip it like that in the flux, and that will make a nice, that will clean the tip of the soldering iron. I'm sure that if you will look on YouTube, you will find great videos on how to use a soldering iron in different ways. So maybe it's advisable that you go and check there while I'm making my own. But in the meantime, okay. So what I did now, I just thinned the tip a little bit to clean it. I check that it's hot enough; it will melt the tin. Okay, so how do we tin a part? I'm going to put it like this, and let's say that this area here, there's going to be a joint coming on it, so I will just take a little bit of solder material and I'm going to do this motion. I'm going to let it heat up a bit, and then I'm going to apply the solder will go on the metal. So now nothing has gone on it because we haven't put the flux on it yet, but once we do that, it will quickly form a bond with the metal, and then you'll see how it happens. Every time that you do something with the iron, make sure to clean the tip. This one is pretty much burnt out. The tip will burn out slowly, and we will need to replace it at a certain point. This thing needs to be a little bit higher. That's it. Okay, so how do we apply the flux? We take one of our earbuds and we just do this. We apply a nice coating to it, pretty much everywhere that we know that a joint will come on. We're just going to align them like that, so we know that here there's going to be a joint, and we know that here there's going to be one, and we're going to do the same. Like that. Try to plan it ahead, try to plan it before you turn on the iron, but kind of nervous making these videos and I forget half the stuff that I plan to do, but yeah. Okay, so we can see where the joints will come, and we're just going to take our iron now and again give it a bit of a rub, and we're going to apply some tin, and now I'm just going to let it heat up, and then once you see that it gets this silvery color, that means that the tin has bonded with the metal itself. There we go, and now you can already see it flowing, and we have created a nice coating. So I hope that you can see that on the camera, that you can see the difference in the color, and you can see where the coating is and where we have the original metal. So again, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to take a bit of tin and we're going to apply it, and just like you're coloring, think about it like you're trying to rub off this thing on the metal. Slowly the metal will heat up. Now you will notice that if you didn't sand the paper, the sheet of metal well enough, there will be places where the solder does not stick, and that means that there's still dirt on it. But if you scrub the iron a little bit on it like that, it will eventually just either burn through it or rub off on it, and that's it. We've thinned this part, and now we're going to do the top. Let's first do the insides. Then we have this one. I think it's going to take a bit of time, so I'm just going to finish these two, and then I'm going to cut ahead. Okay, so let's make this one as well. You can pretty much, I hope that you can see that. It's difficult to do it like that, but I'm basically just placing this and I'm letting the metal heat up, and once you see this silvery shade going off it, that means that we have now a thin coating of tin, and it will give us a nice bond with the metal itself. Okay, so I'm gonna tin all the parts, all the places that I'm gonna need to make joints, and I'm gonna see you pretty soon once I'm done with it, and then we're gonna continue soldering it together. Okay, so I've tinned all the sides that I'm gonna join for the rectangular structure for the frame. And now we're going to join them together. So you can see that just I've tinned only this side of the profile, because on all these profiles only one side is going to get joined. So remember I said you put two pieces like that, and then you're going to take two pieces and you're going to put them like that. So we're going to build this on this straight angle, and the way we do that is simply we're going to take our first part we are making the joints on this side. So we're just going to put it upside down and we're going to align it nicely with the corner. Then we're going to take the second one, and again the top side is the one that we're going to join. So we're going to place this one also with the right angle and we're going to align it. Now, since we already tinned the two pieces, it's enough to heat up this corner here. So where I'm holding this point, it's enough to heat it up to already cause the tin in the bottom part and the top part. It will heat up and it will stick the two pieces together, and then we're going to add a nice seam to it here and on the inside, and that will make a nice thing. So since we tinned it, it's going to be pretty fast, so we can either hold it with a tool like this, or we can just hold it with our fingers here, which makes it much more stable. And we're going to take our soldering iron like that. There we go. We're going to apply some solder on it. And that's why you see I like this hole, because you always need to use two hands to do these things. And we're going to just heat up the two elements. And I'm going to hold the soldering iron in such a way that both the top part and the bottom part will be heated up. There we go. So we made our initial joint. And now I'm just going to put some pressure on it from this point. And we're going to take this and we're going to heat it up one more time. And that will make sure that the two parts are joined together. Okay, see if it's stuck. So we made this. It's still not really strong, but it holds itself. You can see we already have one right angle. Once we're done with the top, now we're gonna just add another joint here in the middle, and that will make sure that this thing holds on. Let's just take a bit more material here. There we go. And again, I'm gonna put this peg. I'm just gonna put some pressure on the center point so that I ensure that the both pieces stay together, because once you will heat up the metal again, what will happen is that the tin again will heat up also on the other side, and if you don't hold it together, then it will just fall apart. So let's just clean it up a bit. And take some material and we're going to hold it down, and we're just going to run across the two pieces. You don't want to put too much material on it. You don't want to get these big bulky things, but just enough to ensure that both pieces are joined together. Both are joined together. So we made our joint. There we go. It's pretty nice. It's pretty strong. It's straight. It's right angle. And we're going to do the same thing also for the other side. So again, remember, we said we're going to put two pieces that will be our verticals, and then we're going to add some horizontals. So again, we're going to make the other side now, and then here will come our bars. So we have this part. Let's make this side, it's easier. So we have this part. Now this one is on top of this one. Okay? So this this piece is on top of this piece. You can see it right here. So you don't want to solder them together when you have this piece now that comes on the other end here, that it is under this piece. So if this one is under this one, the top one will also come under this one. And if it's on top, then it will come on top, and then you get a good structure which doesn't have a deformation to it. So we have it on top. Again, we're going to start by aligning our piece nicely with the corner. Eventually, when you use these wooden things for a while, they will burn out, and then you will no longer have straight corners, but that takes time, and then we just go and buy another one for about €1. So again, I'm going to hold it down, put some pressure on it. There we go. Sometimes it slips, and then you just stop for a moment, put it back on, and do it again. So we're going to heat the two elements. We're going to ensure, and you can also feel it when you're pressing with the peg, when the materials underneath have heated up, and it sinks a little bit, and then you can feel that they both really made a joint together. There we go. Stick on the other side. That's why it's important to sand it really good, so that you won't end up in a situation where the solder doesn't want to stick. There we go. Just clean it up a bit. Once you're done with the joining together, hold it for a few seconds, let it cool down. Even when like a few seconds later, it's still soft. So give it a few moments to cool down, and then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to do the inside just like we did the first one. So I'm going to put it like that. And I'm going to have my peg here. It's already a little bit burned, so I'm going to use this one. It's sharper. Clean our tip. Take some material on it. I'm going to apply some pressure on that point. And we're going to heat up both sides again. Peg slipped a bit, so we're going to do this one more time. It up, hold it in place, and we're out of shape now. And the final part, we just put it in and we align it the way it should be. We don't really need to use this anymore because it will just come out in a straight angle. I'm just going to do it like this. If it's a little bit out of alignment, don't worry about it. You're not dealing here with any sort of heavy things, so you can just use your finger power and just straighten it out a little bit, and it will all come into place. So here we go. We set these two parts just to see how it goes, and they're both nicely aligned here at the corners. Just a little bit. Push it just a little bit. Oops, too much. So you can see that I use the screwdrivers when I want to like adjust a little thing, or when I want to apply more pressure than I can apply with the wooden peg. But that can also cause a mark on the material if you press it too hard. And naturally this doesn't burn, so unlike the peg, it doesn't burn. it doesn't leave this nasty smell of burnt wood in the room. So you can see that when you'll be working with the soldering iron, you will be pretty much soldering in different positions, the way that the model allows you to do that. And you can try to... Oh, tip is dirty. Okay, so when the tip is dirty, the heat is not conveyed anymore, so you want to clean it really thoroughly. And this what basically happens when you leave the soldering iron with no use, or when you're using it when it's really getting old, it's that you will see that the tip becomes black and the heat is no longer conveyed to the metal. So there we go. We clean the tip, it's nice and shiny again. So we're going to just apply a little bit of flux to it, clean it up, and thin the tip. There we go. Clean it up again. And now let's realign our parts. Like that. And we have the other side like that. It's not precision engineering here. Obviously you can apply different levels of precision as much as you want to do it yourself. But when you're just doing it for fun, then you can pretty much reach the level that satisfies you. I like precision. You will see it later on. This is just a nice piece for how to say, a decorative piece for my model. But we have a helix conveyor on it, and that requires a bit more precision, and you will see it in my later tutorials. I almost have it ready, but I'm saving it so that I can show you how to make circular shapes and how to make more intricate designs. Okay, so heat it up. You can just spread the material on it. It's not a nice bond, I don't think it's stuck. The material underneath got stuck, but the metal here got a little bit burnt because we used too much heat on it. We're going to fix that pretty soon. So now we're going to do this side. So that we place for a moment 2 fingers. And there we go. Hold it in place. Take a bit of material. Heat up the 2 elements. And you can pretty much feel when you heat up the 2 parts that you can feel that one side is sinking, and that means that the 2 parts are heating up. I'm mumbling to myself. That is something that I do normally. This iron is really getting old and I need to replace it. I need to replace the tip basically. It takes a little bit more time to heat both metals together, so be patient with it and you'll just get a hang of it as you're going along, soldering more and more parts. So we have our frame. We're just gonna stick these 2 parts together. So just place them like that. Now you can see that here we can't really press it all the way to the end. So we're just gonna apply a little bit of pressure to it so that the parts won't break apart. clean the tip, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and again put some pressure with both elements and make the joint on the other side. You want to keep the, when you're using the screwdriver, you want to keep it as far away from the soldering iron because it will take all the heat away, and that's not good. Both parts heat up. And use the wooden bit because I think that the screwdriver pretty much draws all the heat away. There we go. This joint doesn't come good at all. And you break apart here, then you hold it in place. So again, let's realign it. So what happened here is that when I was holding it down, as I said, you need to give it a few moments to cool down, and I didn't do that, so the metal just wanted to jump back to its original position, but in that process it also cooled down and then it got stuck in a way that you don't want it to get stuck. So we're gonna just make it from here. It's metal, and whenever you make a mistake, you can simply just remove the soldering material. I will show you how in later tutorials. There we go, so we have a nice, let's add some more. You are making quite thick seams, so don't be worried if you're using like a lot of soldering iron, because that's the point. That's what you're trying to achieve basically. We stuck those two parts together and we have our square here. Let's see if we got a square. We're gonna have our, there we go. Let's just measure these two ends. So we have 15 on this end, and we have 15 on this end as well. So we have a nice square line. Okay, so now we're going to add the middle parts. So again, let's just position them, see exactly where they need to go. If it's more comfortable to you, you can mark the places that that these things will go into. You can see the shape that we have produced so far. These are still not soldered in, but we're going to solder them together. You don't need to to have the whole piece soldered. We just want to hold it in place. It's already held by the profile itself, so we just want to make sure that it doesn't move. A little bit of solder on each side here on the top and the bottom, and then we have our piece pretty much ready. So I'm going to do all this. I don't really think that you need to see that in the video. I don't know if you see that much from the soldering. I hope that you do. But we're going to cover that also in a dedicated video. So I'm going to join all these things together, and then we're going to be back for the final part. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, so we're back, and I've removed all the things that I didn't need here. I soldered the middle parts together, and just in the same way that you saw earlier. And we have our element. I don't know if you can see that on my shirt. There we go. We have our element. It's nice, it's strong, it's sturdy. I'm still using safety gloves because it still has all the flux on it. So this is something that we want to remove. We don't need to solder it anymore. It's just going to be freely attached to the model. It's going to sit inside the hopper. So it's just going to sit there with the same level of the braces. And I'm just gonna, the last thing that we need to do, we need to clean the flux. Before we do that, just a few things. When you finish working with your soldering iron, always turn it off, obviously. But before you turn it off, you just dip it a few times in the flux, and then you clean it, and then you put some tin on the tip, and that ensures that the tip will not rust and it will not start to corrode. So this is something that is useful for you to maintain your soldering iron in good condition. And other than that, yeah, that's it. I think I covered everything. I have this baggie here, so just a plastic bag, and I use it to dispose of all the things that I used to touch the flux, and just dispose of it. Nothing special. So I'm going to take this. I'm just going to show you. You can pretty much realize how we can clean this this part here. But I have here a bowl, slightly bigger, with warm water and a bit of soap. And I'm just going to put it in there. And I have this old toothbrush, and I'm just going to use the toothbrush, and I'm going to go over all the places. Don't need to press on it too hard because the soap will already adhere with the oil from the flux, and it will remove it slowly. So you just want to go on everywhere that we put the flux on, and just clean it, rinse it every time. There we go, like that. I know that it's really not that important for the video, but why edit it again? So just gonna get this done real quick. Other side. Now it's important to remove the flux, because if you don't, first of all, you don't want to handle it. You don't want this oil on your skin. Nothing will happen if you touch it here and there, and then wash your hands immediately afterwards. Definitely don't touch your eyes, don't touch your mouth or nose or any sort of cavities on your body when you have flux on your hands. But if you don't remove it from the model, what will happen is that it will simply, it's a corrosive substance, so it will start to corrode the metal, and you'll just have these nasty black spots. And if you leave it like that for years, then it will rust away. So you want to remove all the residue also for the painting process. And that is something that I'm not going to cover in these tutorials, because I'm pretty sure that you can figure out by yourself how you do the painting. But this is it. So we cleaned it with some warm water and soap. I'm going to let it dry for a moment here in a towel, and get this all this crap out of the way, and then we're gonna sum up this whole tutorial. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we've finished our element. It's now clean and it's all soldered up. You saw how I made the frame and how I added these in the middle. Not really difficult things to make, and you can see how this will come into place. So there is a hopper here, and you can see material will fall through it, and we want to prevent clump material or hard material to fall through the hopper. So we have produced this bull guard, and we're going to place it inside, and you can see that it simply rests inside on the same level as the support braces. So this is basically what it does. It adds some nice touch to the model, and it took us about an hour to produce this part, maybe less if I didn't have to go and turn the camera on and off every time. This pretty much sums up this first tutorial. You learned how to take just every steel can, and you learned how to recognize them and how to process them and turn them into sheets of metal, and also then extract the metal that we need to use and put a template on it, cut it, bend it, shape it, solder it, and clean it. And these are the basic steps. We didn't cover a lot of things. This is just a scratch of the surface as far as the techniques and the things that you can do. There are many things that I didn't cover because it was really becoming too long. But I am going to create a second tutorial where we're going to pretty much finish this model. And well, I don't know if finishing it, but we're going to create more complex elements. We're going to see how I build the helix conveyor here, and if you want to know more information about this model, you can check in the description. Okay, well, aside from this was my first YouTube tutorial, and I hope you liked it. I hope that I presented it good. I'm not really a presenter. I watched a lot of videos before I did this one and just picked up the basic elements and tried to mimic them and learn from that. If you have any comments or suggestions, things that I can improve in, things that I can do differently, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will really try to implement these suggestions in my next tutorial, which will come pretty shortly. So if you like the channel, please subscribe. And other than that, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this build.